I wash the dishes while my children's voices echo through the kitchen. They are arguing loudly about something again, but they haven't called me to join in for a long time. My hands, covered with wrinkles and age spots, mechanically scrub the plate. I have been washing these dishes for 47 years. Different plates, different kitchens, but the same hands. "Martha, are you coming?" Harold's voice comes from the living room. My husband doesn't like it when I spend a long time in the kitchen after family dinners. But what can I do? The children only come on Sundays, and I try to make everything perfect. "I'm coming, dear," I reply, drying my hands with a towel. I am 67, Harold is 70. We've been together for almost 50 years. We raised 3 children and now have grandchildren. It should be a time of peaceful old age and joyful family life, but life turned out differently. 5 years ago, Harold and I decided to transfer ownership of our house in Rochester to our children. It's a 2-story house with 4 bedrooms, a living room, a spacious kitchen, and a backyard. We paid for it over 30 years. I worked as a nurse anesthetist my whole life, and Harold was a machine operator at a paper mill. We were never rich, but we never struggled either. When the children grew up, we decided there was no point in keeping the house. Leland, our eldest, always wanted it. Fiona and Toby also claimed their share. The lawyer suggested transferring the house to all 3 of them, with Harold and I retaining the right to live there for the rest of our lives. At the time, it seemed reasonable. Now I realize it was a mistake. I walk into the living room. Harold is watching a baseball game, but he turns off the sound as soon as I sit down next to him. In 47 years, he's learned to notice when I need to talk. "Was Rachel's plate not clean enough again?" he asks with a slight smirk. "No, it's just... I don't know how to explain the heaviness in my heart. Did you notice how Leland reacted today when I mentioned paying for the roof repairs?" Harold frowns. He's always been a man of few words, but in recent years he's become even quieter. I know it hurts him to see how our children treat us. "I noticed. It's as if we owe them for the repairs. But the house is legally theirs, and we agreed that we would split all major expenses 4 ways. Harold shakes his head. "Martha, we pay for everything." Absolutely everything in this house. Electricity, water, heating, property taxes. Now there's the roof repairs, which will cost $7,000, and Leland comes over once a week to eat our food and watch football on our TV. "He's busy at work, you know that." I automatically defend my son, even though I know Harold is right. "Is Fiona busy too? And Toby?" There is bitterness in my husband's voice. "They come when they need something, money to watch the kids, to cook a week's worth of meals." I sigh. Harold is right. Our children haven't come over just to spend time with us in a long time. There's always a reason. They always need something. Leland, our eldest, a car service manager, constantly complains about financial problems. His second wife, Rachel, spends more than they earn. A new car, repairs to their rented house, expensive vacations. Every month, Leland asks to borrow a couple $100. That money never comes back. Fiona, our middle daughter, works as an administrator at a dental clinic. She has 2 children, Hayden and Audrey. Her husband, Dennis, is a forklift operator at a warehouse. They don't live poorly, but Fiona constantly compares herself to her more successful friends. And for some reason, she thinks her parents owe her for the difference. Pay for Hayden's sports camp, buy Audrey an expensive phone, help with the down payment on a new minivan. Toby, the younger son, a long-haul truck driver, shows up even less often than the others. Sometimes he disappears for months and then shows up at the door with another problem. It's either an accident, fines, or he's lost his job. He has a son from his first marriage, Jason, whom we see once a year. Jason always comes with his maternal grandmother and always leaves with a check for $500 for his education. "I talked to Miranda this week," I say, changing the subject. Miranda, Leland's 19-year-old daughter from his first marriage, is the only one of his grandchildren who calls us just to say hello without asking for money. "How is she?" Harold perks up. He has always had a soft spot for Miranda. "She's fine. She's studying and working part-time in a cafe. She says she wants to come visit next weekend." "That's nice." Harold smiles, but his smile quickly fades. "Does Leland know?" "I don't think so. They haven't been in touch much since he married Rachel." We sit in silence. The TV plays the game silently. I hear footsteps upstairs. It's Fiona walking around in what used to be our bedroom, which now serves as a guest room when the kids stay over. All three of them have decided to sleep over tonight. That doesn't happen often. "Martha," Harold takes my hand. "We need to talk seriously." I tense up. Harold rarely initiates serious conversations. "You need to stop paying all their bills and indulging their every whim. The children are grown up. They have their own families, their own incomes. You can't be their ATM forever." "But they're our children. They're in their 40s and 50s, Harold cuts me off. "When we were their age, we were supporting a family, paying a mortgage, and saving for your education. They live for today and are sure that Mom will always come to their rescue." "What are you suggesting?" I ask quietly. "For starters, stop paying for roof repairs. It's their house now, let them pay. We're paying our share of the utilities. That's enough." I sigh. Harold makes sense, but the thought of turning our children away makes my heart ache. My whole life has been devoted to them. First, diapers and sleepless nights, then school projects and sports competitions, then helping them with their first apartments and weddings. How can I say no now? "They'll be hurt," I say. "They're already hurt," Harold retorts. "Every time you do something for them, they take it for granted and expect even more. Did you see how Toby reacted when you said you couldn't lend him money for a new car after he wrecked his old one?" I remember my younger son's face. Offended, angry, almost hateful. He threw the keys to his wrecked car on the table and hissed, "Thanks for the support, Mom." As if I were to blame for his accident, which was caused by his speeding. "You're right," I finally agree. "But let's take it slowly. I'll tell them about the roof tomorrow, before they leave." Harold nods and turns the TV back on. The conversation is over. The decision has been made. Tomorrow, I'll talk to the kids. In the evening, when Harold is already asleep, I go down to the kitchen for a glass of water. Passing through the living room, I notice the light and hear muffled voices. I stop in the hallway, the door ajar. It's ridiculous. Does she really think we're going to pay for that roof? It's Leland's voice. "Dad's egging her on, I'm sure," Fiona replies. "He's always been stingy." "It's not stinginess," Toby interjects. "They're just getting old and cranky. Mom forgets things, Dad grumbles all the time. We can't put up with this forever." I freeze, afraid to move. The children never spoke like this in my presence. "I talked to Dennis," Fiona continues. "He thinks we should start looking for a nursing home for them." "A nursing home?" Leland asks. "Isn't that a bit early?" "They're in their 60s, Fiona replies. "Many people their age have been in specialized facilities for a long time. They'll be better off there. They'll have supervision, care, and companionship with people their own age." "Yeah, and we'll have the house all to ourselves," Toby remarks, a smirk in his voice. "Although seriously, it makes sense. They can't manage such a big house anymore." "I'm afraid Mom will refuse," says Fiona. "She's always been stubborn." "Then we'll have to convince her," says Leland firmly. "Sooner or later, they'll have to move anyway. It's better to do it while they're still relatively healthy and can adapt." "And how much does a good nursing home cost?" "Between $3,000 and $5,000 a month," Fiona replies. "But they have pensions, health insurance, and savings. It should be enough." "What if it's not enough?" Toby's voice sounds worried. "Then we'll have to sell the house." Leland shrugs. "It's worth about $300,000. Even if we split it 3 ways, that's $100,000 each. That'll pay for a decent place for them for a few years." I feel a lump rising in my throat. My children are discussing how to get rid of Harold and me, how to sell the house we've paid for over 3 decades, how to spend our savings on a nursing home we don't need. "What if they don't agree?" Toby asks. "Then we'll have to take stronger measures," Leland replies. "After all, the house is legally ours. We can simply create conditions that will make it uncomfortable for them to stay here." "What do you mean?" Fiona's voice sounds uncertain. "Well, for example, start renovating. Long, noisy, with workers all over the house, or rent out the second floor to tenants. Or start throwing parties every weekend." "That's cruel," Fiona remarks, but without much protest. "Life is cruel," Leland replies philosophically. "Listen, I love Mom and Dad, but they've lived their lives. Now it's our turn. And if that means sending them to a nice nursing home, then so be it." "I agree," Toby nods. "Besides, they'll really be better off there. Round-the-clock medical care, no worries about cooking or cleaning. Then it's settled, Leland concludes. Next week, I'll start gathering information about suitable places. Fiona, you talk to Mom. You've always been good at persuading her. Okay, Fiona agrees, but it's better to wait for the right moment. Maybe when she starts complaining about her back pain again or how hard it is to clean the whole house. I step back from the door, trying not to make a sound. My hands are shaking, and tears are welling up in my eyes. My children, whom I raised with love, to whom I gave everything I had, are planning to get rid of me and Harold like we're unwanted furniture. I go back to the bedroom and quietly close the door. Harold is asleep, his breathing steady and calm. I won't wake him up. I'll tell him tomorrow. I lie down next to him, but sleep won't come. My children's words echo in my head. They've lived their lives. Now it's our turn. Have we always been nothing more than a burden to them, tolerated for our money and our house? I think about all the years Harold and I worked, saved, and denied ourselves everything to give our children a better life. About how I took extra shifts at the hospital to pay for Leland's college tuition. About how Harold and I helped Fiona with her first apartment deposit. About how we bailed Toby out every time he got into trouble. And this is how they want to repay us, by sending us to a nursing home, selling our house, and dividing the money among themselves. Tears roll down my cheeks, but I don't make a sound. I don't want Harold to wake up and see me like this. In the morning, we'll decide everything in the morning. The morning was cloudy. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the check I was holding in my hands. $7,523.80. The roof repairs cost more than we had originally planned. The contractor found rotten rafters that also had to be replaced. Harold came into the kitchen, poured himself some coffee, and sat down across from me. "Still thinking about it?" he asked, nodding at the check. "That's a lot of money," I sighed. "Almost a third of our annual savings." "Which we're spending on a house that belongs to our children," Harold reminded me. "A house they visit once a week, if that." I put the check aside and looked at my husband. After overhearing the children's conversation yesterday, I was feeling heavy. I couldn't sleep all night, replaying their words in my head. They've lived their lives. Now it's our turn. It was as if Harold and I were no longer people, but worn-out items that needed to be disposed of. "I didn't tell you everything," I said quietly. "Last night I overheard the children talking." Harold froze with his cup at his lips. "What were they talking about?" I repeated what I had overheard. With every word I spoke, his face grew darker. When I finished, he put down his cup and stared out the window for a long time. "What are we going to do?" I finally asked. "For starters, we're not paying for that damn roof," Harold said firmly. "Not a penny. Let them deal with it themselves." I nodded. For the first time in a long time, I completely agreed with my husband. After what I had heard, the idea of giving $7,500 to repair a house that the children were planning to take away from us seemed absurd. "What next?" I asked. Harold sighed. "I don't know, Martha. We need to think about it. Maybe we should talk to Vera. She's a lawyer. She might be able to advise us." Vera Holloway was a longtime acquaintance of ours, a specialist in family law. She had once helped us draw up the documents for transferring the house to the children. "That's a good idea," I agreed. "I'll call her tomorrow." At that moment, Fiona entered the kitchen. She was dressed in expensive pajamas, her hair pulled back in a casual bun. My daughter always kept up with fashion, even at times like this. "Good morning," she said, heading for the coffee maker. "What are you whispering about?" "Discussing the roof repairs," Harold replied. "The contractor sent the final bill." Fiona glanced at the check on the table. "Wow, that's expensive. But what can you do? The roof is important." I noticed Harold clench his jaw. He always did that when he was holding back irritation. "Yes, it's important," I said in an even voice. "Important enough that you and your brothers should pay for it yourselves." Fiona froze with her cup in her hand. "What?" "You heard, Mom," Harold said. "The house belongs to the three of you. We pay for utilities because we live here, but major repairs are the responsibility of the owners." Fiona put her cup down on the table so hard that coffee spilled onto the tablecloth. "Are you serious? After everything we do for you?" "What exactly do you do for us, Fiona?" I asked quietly. My daughter opened and closed her mouth, unable to find an answer. We visit you every week. We bring the grandchildren. You come over to eat the home-cooked meals I prepare," I interrupted her. "You leave your children with us when you need to have fun, and every time you leave with a check or cash for unexpected expenses." Fiona turned pale. "If that's how you feel, then what?" asked Harold. "Fine." Fiona stood up abruptly. "I'll talk to my brothers, but don't expect us to be able to come up with that kind of money right away." "You have until the end of the month," said Harold. "The contractor is willing to wait." Fiona rushed out of the kitchen without even finishing her coffee. A few minutes later, excited voices could be heard from upstairs. She had woken her brothers and was telling them something heatedly. "Here we go," Harold sighed. I put my hand on his palm. "We're doing the right thing." "I know, I just hate conflict." Everyone came down for breakfast. Leland and his wife, Rachel, Fiona and her husband, Dennis, and their children, Toby. The atmosphere was tense. The children glanced at each other, but no one brought up the roof repairs. I silently divided the bacon and egg omelet, toast, and fruit among the plates. "Grandma," Miranda said suddenly, "I got a letter from college. I was accepted into the psychology program." "Congratulations, dear." "I'm so happy for you," I said sincerely. "It's your dream." Miranda nodded, her eyes shining. "Yes, but there's a problem with the payment. The scholarship only covers part of it. I need to find about $5,000 more for the first semester." "Do you have any savings?" Leland asked, not looking at his daughter. "A little. I worked at a cafe all summer, but it's not enough." "What about a student loan?" Rachel suggested. Miranda frowned. "I don't want to start my adult life in debt." "Sometimes you can't avoid it." Rachel shrugged. I glanced at Harold. He nodded almost imperceptibly. "Miranda," I said, "Grandpa and I will help you with the payments." My granddaughter's face lit up. "Really? That would be such a help." "Of course. Education is important." I noticed Leland and Fiona exchange quick glances. They clearly hadn't expected us to agree to pay for Miranda's education after talking about the roof. "That's very generous of you," Leland said tensely, "especially considering this morning's conversation about finances." "We decide how to spend our money," Harold replied, "and our granddaughter's education is more important to us than repairing the roof of a house you own." There was a heavy pause. I saw Leland clench his fork so tightly that his knuckles turned white. "Well," he finally said, "that's very kind of you." "Miranda, don't forget to thank your grandparents." "Thank you," Miranda said quietly, sensing the tension at the table. "I'm very grateful to you." After breakfast, the children went about their business. Miranda stayed to help me with the dishes. "What's going on, Grandma?" she asked when we were alone. "Why was Dad acting so strange?" I sighed. Miranda had always been observant. "We're having a little disagreement about finances. Nothing serious." "Is it about the house?" Miranda lowered her voice. "I heard Dad tell Rachel that the house technically belongs to him and my uncle and aunt." "Yes, that's right," I confirmed. "Grandpa and I transferred ownership of the house to them 5 years ago, retaining the right to live here for the rest of our lives. And now they want you to pay for repairs to a house that belongs to them?" I smiled. Miranda always grasped things quickly. "Something like that. But don't worry, we'll figure it out." Miranda hugged me. "Grandma, if you need any help, anything at all, just let me know, okay?" "Okay, sweetie," I stroked her hair. "Go on. You probably have more interesting things to do than wash dishes with an old lady." "Nothing is more important than family," Miranda said seriously. "Real family." After the children left, Harold and I spent a quiet day at home. I knitted a new sweater for Miranda, and he worked in the shed on his latest carpentry project. In the evening, we watched our favorite TV show and went to bed early. The week passed quietly. The children didn't call, which was unusual. Usually at least one of them contacted me every day with some request or other. I called Vera Holloway and arranged a meeting, but she could only see us in 2 weeks. She was busy with a complicated divorce case. On Friday evening, as Harold and I were getting ready for bed, the phone rang. It was Fiona. "Mom, my brothers and I want to come over tomorrow and have a serious talk," she said without preamble. We'll be there by dinner." "Okay, dear," I replied. "Is something wrong?" "We'll talk tomorrow," Fiona replied evasively and hung up. I turned to Harold. "They're coming tomorrow. They want to have a serious talk." "Of course," he grunted. "Operation Nursing Home has begun." I didn't say anything, but I knew he was right. The next day was sunny. I prepared lunch in the morning, a roast with vegetables, which all my children loved. Harold was unusually quiet, spending most of his time in his chair with a book. At exactly 12 o'clock, 3 cars pulled up, Leland with Rachel, Fiona with Dennis and the children, and Toby. Miranda wasn't with them, which made me suspicious. She never missed family dinners. "Miranda couldn't make it?" I asked as everyone sat down at the table. "She had to work at the cafe," Leland replied curtly, "or meeting her friends. I didn't ask." I noticed how he avoided my gaze and realized that Miranda simply hadn't been invited. Lunch was spent in tense silence. The children hardly spoke, exchanging only a few short phrases. My grandchildren, sensing the atmosphere, also fell silent. Even the usually talkative Audrey picked silently at her plate. After lunch, Fiona sent the children out to the garden. "We need to talk," she said when the 6 of us were left in the living room. Me, Harold, Leland with Rachel, Fiona with Dennis and Toby. "We're listening," Harold replied, crossing his arms over his chest. Leland cleared his throat and straightened up. "Mom, Dad, we've been thinking long and hard and have come to the conclusion that it would be best for you to move into a specialized facility for seniors." Even though I had been expecting these words, they still hit me like a slap in the face. "A nursing home?" I asked. "Not a nursing home, a retirement community," Fiona corrected me. "These are modern complexes with apartments, medical care, and entertainment. You'll be much better off there than in this old house." "And why would we be better off?" Harold asked. "First, no worries about the house," Leland began to list. "Cleaning, repairs, cooking, the staff takes care of everything. Second, round-the-clock medical care. Third, socializing with people your own age, cultural programs. And fourth, you're not getting any younger," added Toby. "Mom, you have back problems. Dad, you have heart problems. What if something happens when you're alone?" I looked at my children. They spoke smoothly, as if they had rehearsed. Perhaps they had. "Your father and I are doing just fine," I replied. "We have neighbors, we have an emergency phone, and we love our house." "That's not the point," Rachel interjected. "The house is too big for the 2 of you. 4 bedrooms, 2 stories. Why do you need all that space?" "So the grandchildren can visit," Harold replied. "So I can have a workshop, so Martha can garden. There have to be good reasons to give all that up." "What about financial reasons?" Leland asked. "You said yourself you couldn't afford to repair the roof, and there are many more expenses ahead, replacing the pipes, updating the electrical system, a new boiler. The house is 35 years old and requires constant investment." "Which is the responsibility of the owners," Harold reminded him. "That means the 3 of you." "We can't afford it," exclaimed Fiona. "We have our own expenses, children, mortgages, cars." "Then sell the house," suggested Harold. "Divide the money and live as you wish. Martha and I will rent an apartment." There was silence. The children looked at each other. "You don't understand," Leland finally said. "The house is worth much less with the burden of your lifetime residence. No one will buy it at a normal price knowing that strangers will be living here for the rest of their lives." "We're not strangers," I said quietly. "We're your parents." "Who refuse to understand the obvious?" Fiona suddenly raised her voice. "You can't maintain this house. You can't cope. You need help." "We need our children to respect our decision to live where we want," Harold said firmly. "Even if that decision hurts you?" Toby asked. "We know what's best for us," I replied. Leland took a deep breath as if gathering his strength. "Mom, Dad, we've already found a great place. Sunny hills in the suburbs, cozy apartments, wonderful staff, a park nearby. We've scheduled a viewing for next Thursday. Please, at least take a look." "No," Harold said firmly. "We're not going to look at any sunny hills. We're staying in our house." "You can't do this to us," Fiona exclaimed, "after everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done for us?" Harold asked. "Enlighten me." We, Fiona faltered but quickly recovered. "We come every week. We call. We worry about you." "And take money," Harold added, "every time. For the car, for repairs, for vacations. "So that's what this is all about," Fiona exclaimed, throwing her hands up in the air. "Money! You think we want to get rid of you so we can take your house and your inheritance." "Isn't that what we want?" I asked quietly. There was a deafening silence. Fiona stared at me with her mouth open. Leland turned pale. Toby lowered his eyes. "How could you think that?" Fiona finally managed to say. "We're your children. We love you. So much that you're discussing how to make our lives unbearable if we refuse to move," I asked. "So much that you plan to sell our house as soon as we're gone?" I could see from the looks on their faces that I had hit the nail on the head. They clearly hadn't expected me to know about their plans. "You were eavesdropping?" Fiona hissed. "I overheard your conversation when I went down to the kitchen to get some water," I replied, "and I learned that my children think we've lived our lives and now we have to make room for them." "You've got it all wrong," Leland began, but Fiona interrupted him. "To hell with it all," she shouted. "We're trying to help and you're accusing us. Fine, stay in your house. Pay for the repairs. Deal with it yourselves." "Fiona, calm down." Dennis tried to calm her down, but she pushed his hand away. "No, I won't shut up." Fiona turned to me. "You know what, Mom? Thanks for the money for Miranda's education and everything else. Now get out. We don't need you anymore." A dead silence hung in the room. I felt the blood drain from my face. Fiona, my own child, had just told me she didn't need me. Harold silently got up, came over to me, and helped me to my feet. "We're going upstairs," he said in an icy tone. "When we come back down, I don't want you here." He put his arms around my shoulders and led me to the stairs. I walked as if in a dream, my legs feeling like jelly. When we reached the bedroom, Harold closed the door and sat me down on the bed. He sat down next to me and held me tight. "Everything will be all right, Martha," he said quietly. "We'll get through this." "They hate me," I whispered. "My own daughter said she doesn't need me." "She said that in the heat of the moment." Harold stroked my back. "And even so, it's unforgivable," I cried, burying my face in his shoulder. Sobs escaped my chest despite my best efforts to hold them back. "What are we going to do?" I asked when I had calmed down a little. Harold took me by the shoulders and looked me in the eyes. "Now we're going to do things my way," he said firmly. "Enough of being invisible victims. It's time to show our children that we're not helpless old people who can be thrown away like trash." The next morning, the house seemed unusually quiet. The children had left the night before, slamming the door loudly. I sat in the kitchen, stirring my cold tea. Fiona's words echoed in my head. "Thanks for the money. Now go away. We don't need you anymore." Harold entered the kitchen, already dressed and combed. "You're early," I remarked. "We need to act quickly," he replied, pouring himself some coffee. "I called Vera. She agreed to see us today at 10 o'clock. "Today?" I looked at the clock in surprise. "But she said she was busy." I explained the situation. She rescheduled another meeting. I nodded. Vera had always treated us with special attention. Many years ago, I had helped her mother during a difficult operation, and Vera had not forgotten. "What did you tell her?" "That our children are trying to evict us from our own home." Harold sat down opposite me. "And that we need legal advice about our rights." I sighed. The thought of going to court against our own children seemed unbearable. But after yesterday, I realized there might be no other way. "All right," I finally said. "Let's hear what Vera has to say." Vera Holloway's office was located in a small, historic building in the city center. The modest family law sign on the door gave no indication that one of the state's best family lawyers worked there. Vera met us in the reception area, a slender woman in her 60s with short hair and attentive eyes. Her austere suit emphasized her professionalism, but her warm smile made it clear that we were among friends. "Martha, Harold," she said, shaking our hands in turn. "Please come in." Vera's office was cozy, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, comfortable armchairs, and a dark wood desk. The walls were decorated with diplomas and family photos. "So," Vera said when we had settled into our chairs, "Harold gave me a brief explanation of the situation on the phone, but I would like to hear all the details from both of you." We took turns telling her everything, how we had transferred ownership of the house to the children 5 years ago with the condition that they live there for the rest of their lives, how we had continued to pay all the bills and taxes, how we had helped the children financially. And finally, we told her about the recent conflict and the threats to send us to a nursing home. Vera listened attentively, taking notes. When we finished, she leaned back in her chair and tapped her pen thoughtfully on her notepad. "May I see the documents transferring the house?" she asked. Harold took the papers out of the folder and handed them to Vera. She studied each page carefully, sometimes making notes. "Right," she finally said. "This is an interesting situation. When we drew up these documents 5 years ago, we provided for standard lifetime residency rights. But there are a few things that work in your favor." "What are they?" asked Harold. "First," Vera pointed to one of the clauses in the contract, "it says here that the new owners are responsible for all property maintenance costs, including taxes, insurance, utilities, and repairs. But in fact, you've been paying for all of that." "Yes, we did," I confirmed. "The children said it was hard for them, that they had their own expenses. And do you have proof of these payments? Checks, receipts, bank statements?" "Of course," Harold nodded. "I keep all the documents, every month for 5 years." "Excellent," Vera made another note. "Secondly, the contract contains a clause stating that any attempt to violate your right to reside there or to create intolerable conditions may be grounds for revising the entire agreement." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," Vera looked at me over her glasses, "that if your children try to force you out of your home or create conditions that make it impossible for you to live there comfortably, you have the right to contest the entire deal." "Contest?" Harold asked. "You mean get the house back?" "Exactly," Vera nodded. "Moreover, given that they have not fulfilled their financial obligations under the agreement and you have continued to pay all the expenses, it can be said that they have violated the essential terms of the agreement." I felt a warm feeling spread inside me, a mixture of hope and relief. We had a chance to regain control of our lives. "What are our options?" asked Harold. Vera bent her finger. "First, we send an official notice of breach of contract and demand that they fulfill their obligations. This means that your children will have to pay you all the money you spent on maintaining the house over the past 5 years and take over all expenses going forward." She bent her second finger. "Second, we file a lawsuit to have the agreement declared invalid due to systematic violation of its terms and return the house to your ownership. And third, we notify the children of their eviction from the house, which, according to the documents, is their property but is actually maintained by you. This is the most aggressive option, but given their behavior, it is entirely justified." I glanced at Harold. All these options sounded so confrontational. All my life I had avoided confrontation, always looking for compromise, giving in just to keep the peace in the family. And now I was being asked to openly turn against my own children. "Isn't there some way to resolve this peacefully?" I asked. "Maybe family therapy or mediation?" Vera smiled gently. "Martha, from what you've told me, your children are not interested in dialogue. They've already made up their minds and are trying to impose their decision on you. In a situation like this, talking is not very effective." "Vera is right," Harold agreed. "They won't listen to us, but maybe they'll listen to a formal notice from a lawyer." I lowered my eyes. They were both right, but it was so hard to accept. "What would you recommend?" Harold asked Vera. "I would recommend a combined approach," she replied. "First, we'll send a formal notice of breach of agreement demanding compensation for expenses. This will make it clear to them that you are serious. If they ignore it or refuse, then we'll file a lawsuit to have the agreement declared invalid." "What about eviction?" Harold asked. "That's a last resort," Vera explained. "But considering that they don't live in the house permanently, only visiting from time to time, it's a viable option. In fact, you can prohibit them from entering the house, which legally belongs to them, but is maintained at your expense." I shook my head. It all seemed so surreal. To forbid your own children from entering the house that was once their home. "I need to think about it," I said. "Of course," Vera nodded. "I'll prepare all the necessary documents, and you decide which path to take. But don't take too long. The situation could get worse." When we left Vera's office, it was drizzling outside. Harold opened his umbrella and took my arm. "What are you thinking about?" he asked when we got to the car. "How we got to this point," I sighed. "I never thought I'd be in a legal battle with my own children." "Me neither," Harold said, helping me into the car. "But they didn't leave us any choice." We drove home in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. I looked at the houses passing by the window and thought about how quickly something that had taken decades to build had been destroyed. Family, love, trust. Everything had fallen apart with one sentence. "Now go away, we don't need you anymore." The phone rang at home. It was Miranda. "Grandma, I wanted to see how you were," she said. "Dad came home angry yesterday and yelled at Rachel. I heard you had a fight." "Yes, dear," I replied, trying to sound calm. "Your dad and aunt and uncle are having some disagreements about the house." "They want you to move into a nursing home?" I sighed. Miranda was always perceptive. "Yes, something like that." "That's terrible," she exclaimed. "How can they, after everything you've done for them?" "Life is complicated, Miranda," I said. "Sometimes people see things differently." "What are you going to do?" my granddaughter asked. "Your grandfather and I have spoken to a lawyer. We have options." "I want to help," Miranda said firmly. "Whatever happens, I'm on your side." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. "Thank you, dear. That means a lot to us." After talking to Miranda, I called my best friend, Gloria. We had been friends for over 40 years, ever since we worked together at the hospital. I was a nurse. She was a librarian in the medical library. Gloria listened to the whole story without interrupting, then said firmly, "Martha, you've always been too soft on your children. You always gave in, always compromised. And look where it's gotten you. They treat you like an ATM and a free babysitter. It's time to show them your teeth." "I don't know if I can," I admitted honestly. "They're my children." "Who want to send you to a nursing home and take your house?" Gloria exclaimed indignantly. "Listen, I know it's hard, but sometimes you have to choose between being nice and being strong. Right now, you need to be strong." I was silent, thinking about her words. "What does Harold say?" Gloria asked. "He thinks we need to take decisive action, get the house back, evict the kids." "And he's right," Gloria snapped. "Harold has always been a sensible man. Listen to him." After talking to Gloria, I went down to the basement where Harold kept all his documents. Folders, neatly sorted by year and category, filled an entire cabinet. I took out the ones related to the house: utility bills, property taxes, insurance, repairs. Over 5 years, it had added up to a considerable amount. Then I took out the financial notebook where I recorded all the money we gave the children. Every time Leland asked to borrow money for a new car. Every time Fiona demanded to pay for Hayden's sports camp or a new phone for Audrey. Every time Toby got into trouble and needed a little help. The numbers were staggering. In 5 years, we had given our children almost $100,000, money that would never be paid back, money from our pensions and savings. When Harold came back from his walk, I showed him my calculations. "Did you always know it was that much?" I asked. "I had an idea," he replied, studying the numbers, "but seeing it all together, it's shocking." "What are we going to do, Harold?" He sat down next to me and took my hand. "Martha, I know you've always been soft on the kids. You've always protected them, always forgiven them. But look what it's come to. They don't respect us. They think we're a burden to be gotten rid of." I nodded, feeling something break inside me. "I've always tried to be a good mother," I whispered. "You've been the best mother," Harold said firmly. "But this isn't about motherhood. It's about self-respect. It's about protecting yourself and your future." He was right. He was always right. I remembered Gloria's words about choosing between being good and being strong. "Okay," I finally said. "Let's do this. Let's get our house back." The next day, we met with Vera again. I brought all the documents confirming our expenses for the house and financial assistance for the children. "Impressive sums," Vera remarked after studying the papers. "With this evidence, we have a very strong case." "What do we do next?" Harold asked. "I've prepared 3 documents," Vera said, laying the papers out on the table. "The first is an official notice of breach of contract demanding compensation. The second is a statement declaring the agreement null and void. The third is an eviction notice." "Eviction?" I asked. "But they don't live in the house permanently." "Technically, that doesn't matter," Vera explained. As owners, they have the right to enter the house at any time. The eviction notice deprives them of that right until the court decides. I looked at Harold. He nodded in support. "And what happens when we send these documents?" I asked. "They'll receive official notification," Vera replied. "They'll have 30 days to respond. If they ignore it or refuse, we'll go to court." "What if they agree to comply?" Harold suggested. "Then we'll draw up a new agreement," Vera said, "with clear obligations and penalties for non-compliance." I took a deep breath. Inside, two Martas were still fighting. The mother who loved her children no matter what, and the woman who had been betrayed and rejected by those same children. "Let's do this," I finally said, signing all 3 documents with determination. When we left Vera's office, I felt a strange sense of relief. It was as if a heavy burden I had been carrying for years had suddenly fallen from my shoulders. For the first time in a long time, I felt in control of my life. "Are you okay?" Harold asked, looking at me intently. "Yes," I replied. "For the first time in many years, I'm really okay." That same day, Vera sent official notices to all 3 of our children, Leland, Fiona, and Toby. Notices of breach of agreement, invalidation, and eviction. The quiet plan was set in motion. Now all that was left was to wait for a response. The phone rang at exactly 9 o'clock in the morning. I was just finishing washing the dishes after breakfast. "Mom, are you out of your mind?" My daughter blurted out instead of saying hello. "What are these papers your lawyer sent us?" I dried my hands with a kitchen towel and took a deep breath, preparing for the conversation I had rehearsed all evening. "Good morning, Fiona. These are official notices of your breach of the agreement and possible eviction." "Eviction?" My daughter's voice rang with indignation. "You want to evict your own children from their home?" "The home you don't maintain but consider your own," I replied calmly. "The home you plan to evict your father and me from." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could almost see Fiona opening and closing her mouth, searching for words. "This is absurd," she finally managed to say. "Dad turned you against us. He was always against giving us the house." "Your father has always been a reasonable man," I replied, "and he is absolutely right now. You have violated all the terms of the agreement. You didn't pay for the upkeep of the house, you didn't take care of us, and now you want to send us to a nursing home. We want what's best for you," Fiona exclaimed. "You can't manage the house." "We can't manage it so badly that we've been paying all the bills, repairs, and taxes for 5 years?" I asked. "We can't manage so well that you come over for dinner every Sunday and I cook for your whole family?" Fiona fell silent again. I could hear her breathing heavily. "This is ridiculous," she finally said. "You're bluffing. No court will take your side." "Well, let's find out," I replied. "You have 30 days to reimburse us for all our expenses for maintaining the house for 5 years, or we're going to court." "You're out of your mind," Fiona hissed. "I'm calling my brothers." She hung up. I slowly put down the phone and looked at my hands. They were shaking a little, but less than I expected. Strangely, I didn't feel fear or guilt, but relief. It was as if I had finally shed a heavy burden I had been carrying for years. Harold came into the kitchen, looking at me questioningly. "Fiona?" he asked. I nodded. "She thinks I'm bluffing, that no court would rule in our favor." Harold snorted. "Then she hasn't read the documents carefully." Vera spelled everything out clearly. "They just don't believe I'm capable of taking such a step." I sighed. To them, I've always been just a soft, yielding mother who forgives everything and helps everyone. Harold sat down next to me and took my hand. "You've always been stronger than they think," he said quietly. "Stronger than you think yourself." I gratefully squeezed his hand. In almost 50 years of marriage, Harold had learned to say exactly the words I needed to hear. The next call came 20 minutes later. This time it was Leland. "Mom, this is some kind of mistake, right?" he began in a conciliatory tone. "Those papers from the lawyer. You're not serious, are you?" "I'm absolutely serious, Leland," I replied. "Your father and I have thought this through carefully." "But why?" His voice sounded genuinely puzzled. "We're a family." "That's exactly why," I said. "Families take care of each other. They don't try to get rid of their parents when they become inconvenient." "No one is trying to get rid of you," Leland exclaimed. "We offered you a nice place to live where you'll be taken care of." Did you ask us what we wanted? I asked, keeping my voice calm. You've already decided everything for us. You picked a place, signed up for a viewing, and when we refused, Fiona told me to get out because you don't need me anymore. Leland paused. Fiona lost her temper, he finally admitted. She didn't mean it. She said exactly what she meant, I objected, and you think so too. You all think so. My father and I are a burden to you, something you need to get rid of. Mom, you have 30 days to reimburse us for 5 years' worth of expenses for the house, I interrupted him, or we'll go to court. You can't be serious, Leland said, his voice tinged with irritation. That's a huge amount of money. $87,342.50 to be exact, I replied. It's all documented with receipts and bank statements. That's crazy. Leland was now openly angry. We're not paying. Then we'll see you in court, I said calmly and hung up. My hands were shaking more, but I still felt strangely calm. It was as if I was finally doing what I should have done a long time ago. Toby was the last to call, later that evening. Unlike his brother and sister, he immediately took a plaintive tone. Mommy, what's going on? He whined into the phone. I got some scary papers. You're not going to sue us, are you? I will if you don't fulfill the terms of the agreement, I replied. You have to reimburse us for all our expenses for the house for the past 5 years. But Mom, I don't have that kind of money, Toby exclaimed. You know my situation. I just found a stable job. And you've already asked us twice for money for a new car, I reminded him. Toby, I'm not going to give in to your manipulation anymore. Either you and your brother and sister compensate us for our expenses, or we're going to court. But that's not fair, he exclaimed. You offered to transfer the house to us. On the condition that you would maintain it, I replied, which you didn't do. We didn't know you were keeping track of every dollar. Toby's voice sounded hurt. That's so petty, Mom. Petty is planning to send us to a nursing home so you can take the house, I retorted. You have 30 days to decide. I hung up and took a deep breath. 3 conversations, 3 different reactions, but the same result. None of my children took the threat seriously. They still thought of me as a weak, yielding mother who would soften at the last minute and forgive everything. How wrong they were. Everything okay? Harold asked as he entered the room. Yes, I replied. They don't believe we'll go through with it. They will soon, Harold said, sitting down next to me. Vera called. Everything is ready for tomorrow. I nodded. Tomorrow was the day I had been both looking forward to and dreading. The day my children would finally understand that I was serious. The morning was clear and cool. Harold and I got up early, had breakfast, and waited. At exactly 10 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Standing on the doorstep was Vera Holloway in a strict business suit, carrying a leather briefcase. Behind her were 2 men in bailiff uniforms. Good morning, Martha, Harold, Vera greeted us. Is everything ready? Yes, Harold replied, letting them into the house. Come in, we're in the living room. Vera took the documents out of her briefcase and laid them out on the table. So, today we are delivering official notice of property return and eviction, she said. The bailiffs are here to witness the process and ensure its legality. I nodded, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. This was really happening. I was actually evicting my own children from the home I had once given them. All 3 of your children must receive the documents in person, Vera continued. We agreed to meet here at 11 o'clock. Did they agree? Yes, Harold replied. I told them we had an important family announcement to make. Vera nodded and looked at me. Martha, are you sure you're ready for this? It won't be easy. I took a deep breath. I'm sure. They didn't leave us any choice. At 11 o'clock sharp, as scheduled, 3 cars pulled up. Leland arrived alone without Rachel. Fiona brought her husband Dennis and their children, Hayden and Audrey. Toby, as usual, arrived last. I watched from the window as they gathered on the porch, talking and laughing. They still didn't seem to take the situation seriously. Harold opened the door and let the children into the house. Their faces fell when they saw Vera and the bailiffs in the living room. What's going on? Leland asked, stopping in the doorway. Who are these people? Come in, sit down, Harold said. We have a very important family announcement to make. The children hesitantly entered the living room and sat down on the sofa and armchairs. My grandchildren, Hayden and Audrey, huddled close to their parents, looking around warily. "This is Vera Holloway, our lawyer," I introduced her, "and the bailiffs." "Bailiffs?" Fiona asked. "Why are there bailiffs here?" Vera stood up and looked around at my children. "I'm here to formally serve you with a notice of property repossession and eviction," she said. "This is in accordance with state law and the terms of the agreement you signed 5 years ago." There was a heavy pause. Leland was the first to break the silence. "Is this some kind of joke?" "No, Mr. Winslow, this is not a joke," Vera replied. "Your parents have filed a lawsuit to invalidate the transfer agreement on the grounds of systematic violation of its terms on your part." "What other terms?" Fiona exclaimed indignantly. "We've done everything." "Really?" Vera raised an eyebrow. "According to Clause 3 of the agreement, you, as the new owners, are responsible for all property maintenance costs, including taxes, insurance, utilities, and repairs. Have you been doing that?" Fiona opened and closed her mouth, unable to find an answer. "Exactly," Vera nodded. "In 5 years, you haven't paid a cent. Your parents paid everything. The total amount of expenses is $87,342.50. Everything is confirmed by documents." "So what now?" Toby asked. "You want us to pay that money back?" "That would be ideal," Vera agreed. "But given your refusal and aggressive behavior, my clients have decided to take more decisive action. They are demanding that the house be returned to their ownership and that you be evicted." "Evicted?" Leland asked. "But we don't live here." "Technically, that doesn't matter," Vera explained. "As owners, you have the right to enter the house at any time. Once you are evicted, you lose that right." "This is crazy," Fiona exclaimed, jumping up from her seat. "Mom, you can't do this. We're your children." I looked at my daughter calmly. "That's exactly why I expected respect and care from you, not attempts to send us to a nursing home so you can take over the house." "We wanted what was best for you," Leland exclaimed. "You would have received professional care there." "Which we provide perfectly well for ourselves," Harold retorted, "and will continue to do so in our own home." "The judge has already issued a preliminary ruling," Vera said, handing each of my children a stack of documents. "Given the obvious violations of the agreement on your part and your attempts to exert psychological pressure on your parents, the house is being returned to Martha and Harold Winslow. You have 7 days to appeal, but given the evidence, there is virtually no chance." Leland looked through the documents, his face growing increasingly grim. "This is impossible," he muttered. "How did you get the court's decision so quickly?" "Thanks to irrefutable evidence," Vera replied, "and the fact that Judge Harrison takes attempts to defraud the elderly very seriously, especially when it's their own children." "We didn't defraud anyone," Toby protested. "You defrauded us. You pretended to be weak and helpless, but you were smart enough to protect your rights, weren't you?" Harold interrupted. "Yes, son, we are." "Grandma, how could you?" Audrey, Fiona's 15-year-old daughter, suddenly spoke up. "Where will we celebrate Christmas?" "That's up to your parents," Harold said. "Our home is always open to grandchildren who respect us." "You can't do this to us," Fiona exclaimed again, her voice trembling with rage. "This is our home. You gave it to us." "With conditions that you didn't fulfill," I reminded them, "and now you're reaping the consequences." Leland suddenly calmed down and put the documents aside. "Fine," he said. "If you want to fight, you'll get one. I have friends who are lawyers. We'll fight for this house." "Of course, that's your right," Vera nodded, "but I would recommend consulting with a good family lawyer first. He'll explain that your chances are close to 0. "Mom!" Toby suddenly dropped to his knees in front of me. "Please don't do this. I know we weren't the best children. We made mistakes, but we can fix everything." I looked at my younger son. His eyes were filled with tears, but I knew this tactic all too well. Toby always cried when he wanted something. "You can fix everything," I agreed. "Start by apologizing and admitting your mistakes. Then make up for 5 years of house expenses. And most importantly, learn to respect our decisions and our independence." "We'll pay," Toby exclaimed. "Right now, I have some cash." "87,000, Harold clarified. "I doubt it." "We'll find the money," said Leland. "We'll borrow it, take out a loan, just cancel the eviction." I glanced at Harold. I saw in his eyes what I felt myself, Our children didn't feel sorry for us. They felt sorry for losing their home. I'm afraid it's too late, I said. The judge has made his decision. The house is ours again. You can't do this to us, Fiona exclaimed, her voice breaking into a scream. We're your children. You're supposed to love us. I do love you, I replied calmly, but love doesn't mean letting you treat us like trash to be thrown away. No one has ever treated you like that, Leland protested. We offered you a comfortable place to live, which we don't want and don't need, Harold snapped, and which you chose without our input. At that moment, the door opened and Miranda entered the living room. She stopped in the doorway, looking around at everyone. What's going on? She asked. Why is everyone shouting? Miranda! Leland exclaimed. Did you know about this? Did you know that Grandma and Grandpa were going to take our house away from us? Miranda calmly walked into the room and stood next to me. They're not taking it away, Dad. They're taking back what is rightfully theirs. And yes, I knew, and I fully support them. Traitor, Fiona spat, and you're just like them. No, Aunt Fiona, Miranda said firmly. You're the traitors here. Grandma and Grandpa sacrificed their whole lives for you, and you wanted to send them to a nursing home so you could take their house. Stay out of adult matters, Leland snapped at her. She's old enough to know the difference between right and wrong, Harold remarked, unlike some people. The atmosphere in the room was heating up. Fiona was on the verge of tears. Leland was barely holding back his anger, and Toby continued to feign remorse. Hayden and Audrey glared at Miranda with hatred. I think that's enough for today, Vera said, gathering her documents. The notices have been officially served in the presence of witnesses. You have 7 days to appeal the court's decision. After that, the house will officially become the property of Martha and Harold Winslow. This isn't over, Leland said, standing up. We'll fight it. That's your right, Vera shrugged. But I would recommend spending your energy and money on finding common ground with your parents rather than on a hopeless lawsuit. Fiona stood up abruptly, grabbed her children by the hand, and headed for the exit. Let's go, she said to her husband. We're not welcome here anymore. Fiona, I called after my daughter, that's not true. You are always welcome in our home, but only as guests who respect their hosts. Fiona didn't answer, just slammed the door so hard that the glass rattled. Leland followed, saying goodbye. You'll regret this, Mom. Toby was the last to leave. He was still trying to look remorseful. Mom, please reconsider, he said. We can fix this. I can move in with you, help around the house. Toby, I interrupted him gently, you haven't helped around the house in 38 years. Don't start now because you're afraid of losing your inheritance. He lowered his head and left silently. When everyone had left, only Harold, Miranda, Vera, the bailiffs, and I remained in the living room. Well, that's over. Interesting, Vera remarked, but entirely predictable. They're furious, I said, especially Leland and Fiona. Of course, Vera nodded. They're losing the house they were counting on. But legally, your position is unassailable. They won't be able to challenge the court's decision. Grandma, are you okay? Miranda asked, sitting down next to me. Tired, I admitted honestly, but strangely calm. Harold put his hand on my shoulder. You were magnificent, he said quietly, firm but fair. I covered his hand with mine. We had been through this together, just like everything else in our lives. Thank you, Vera, I said, turning to the lawyer, for everything. You're welcome, she smiled. I'm glad I could help. And I'm proud of both of you. Not everyone can find the strength to stand up to their own children, even when they're clearly in the wrong. Vera and the bailiffs left, leaving the three of us, me, Harold, and Miranda. What now? My granddaughter asked as we sat down in the kitchen to drink tea. Now we wait, Harold replied. They may try to appeal the court's decision, but their chances are slim. In a week, the house will officially be ours again. What about my father and aunt and uncle? Miranda looked worried. Will they accept it? I sighed. I don't know, dear. They'll have to accept that the house is no longer theirs. But whether they'll accept that your grandfather and I won't let them manipulate us anymore, that's another question. They're angry with me, Miranda said quietly, for taking your side. You can stay here if you want, Harold offered. Your room is always ready. Miranda smiled. "Thank you, Grandpa. I'll think about it. But now I have to go back, see how my father is doing." When Miranda left, Harold and I were left alone in the quiet house. For the first time in many years, I felt that this was truly our home. Not just a place where we lived at the mercy of our children, but our own home, where we were the masters. "Are you okay?" Harold asked, seeing that I was lost in thought. "Yes," I replied. "I'm just realizing that we really did it. We're no longer invisible victims who can be manipulated." Harold took my hand. "You were incredible today. Calm, confident, unyielding." "I didn't feel that way," I admitted. Inside, I was shaking, especially when Fiona was screaming and when Toby was on his knees. "But you didn't give in," Harold said gently, "and that's what matters." I squeezed his hand. Yes, I didn't give in. For the first time in my life, I refused to sacrifice myself for children who took my love for granted. "Do you think they'll ever understand?" I asked. "Maybe," Harold shrugged, "but even if they don't, we did the right thing. We protected ourselves and our future." I nodded. He was right. Whatever happened next, today we had taken a step toward regaining control of our lives, and no matter how difficult the consequences might be, I knew I would no longer be an invisible victim.